Republicans are being met with a deafening chorus of boos everywhere they turn in the United States right now, from the federal halls of power in Washington to state legislatures across the country. That video we just shared with you comes from reporter Bram Resnick in Arizona, capturing a historic moment that encapsulates the current national mood. As Republican legislators returned for the first day of the 2026 legislative session, they were mercilessly booed by their own constituents. The people of Arizona are fed up. They are exhausted and terrified by Donald Trump's decision to invade Arizona's cities and towns with his militarized ICE and Border Patrol units. This isn't just about one state. It's a nationwide breaking point. Citizens are increasingly revolted by the aggressive and lawless tactics employed by ICE across the United States, and they are making sure their Republican representatives feel that heat. You heard the visceral anger in that footage, but this sentiment is spreading like wildfire through the American heartland.
Pinal County Attorney Brad Miller had a tough time sharing his support for ICE this morning outside of the state capitol.
Protesters surrounded the Senate lawn days after the Pinal County Attorney's office made a tweet saying, "We stand with ICE."
Even within the party, leadership at both the state and federal levels is beginning to whisper that Donald Trump is doubling down on stupid. There is a growing cynical consensus among some Republicans that the party actually deserves to lose the upcoming midterms, simply to send a message to Trump that when you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. There is a sense that the MAGA movement needs to be blown out at the polls so that a clear message can be sent that this path is unsustainable.
He's been a chronic disappointment, and I feel embarrassed that I told people to go vote for him because this wasn't going to happen, and it is happening. But I just think that the picture of politics in America is going to look very differently because of his actions. So I don't know where we go from here. I really don't. But this is not the candidate that I voted for.
MAGA Republicans are increasingly pissed off at Donald Trump's erratic behavior, particularly his delusional claims of being the president of Venezuela and his constant threats of war against virtually every country in the Western Hemisphere. However, the most acute point of frustration right now involves the Department of Justice. Lawmakers are livid that Trump has forced the DOJ to launch a federal criminal investigation into the chairman of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell. Even Powell's most vocal critics within the MAGA ranks are appalled by how Trump has handled this.
The US Justice Department has launched a criminal inquiry into the US Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. The investigation will focus on the central bank's renovation of its Washington headquarters. It's been reported that this inquiry will look into whether he lied to Congress about the scope of the project.
They recognize that turning the nation's central bank into a political target for criminal prosecution is a bridge too far. Today in the halls of Congress, the atmosphere was thick with tension. We saw MAGA Mike Johnson doing what he does best, running away from cameras and dodging tough questions. But while the speaker was in retreat, many other Republicans were stepping forward to voice their opposition to the president. Some went on the record, while others spoke to reporters on background or off the record, fearful but desperate to vent their frustrations. Take a look at what Melanie Zinona is reporting over at NBC News.
One House Republican told Melanie, quote, "Maybe we should lose the majority so the White House and leadership stop making stupid decisions. Our leadership and administration just keeps doubling down on stupid."
It is a stunning development to see Republicans actively rooting for their own defeat in the midterms. We also learned more about the players involved in this mess. Many Republicans have come to despise Bill Pai, the man running the Fair Housing Administration for the Trump regime. Pai is the operative who has been ginning up fake charges against political enemies like Letitia James, Adam Schiff, and Eric Swalwell. Apparently, Pai was the one who pitched Donald Trump on ousting Jerome Powell, even going as far as to bring literal wanted posters of the Fed chief to the Oval Office. According to three people familiar with the situation, the White House is now furious that Pai's role as the instigator has been leaked, and they are blaming him for the exposure. It is total chaos and madness behind the scenes. Meanwhile, MAGA Mike Johnson was spotted fleeing from Manu Raju and other reporters who tried to pin him down on the weaponization of the Justice Department.
Now that Hillary Clinton has also not showed up for her deposition today, James Comer said he's moving ahead with contempt for both of them. I just want to ask again, do you support contempt for the both of them? And if it passes through the Oversight Committee, will you bring it to the floor?
I do support it. I don't know how else you would define it.
Here are some of those Republicans speaking with Manu Raju about the general tone and tenor of this regime, whether it's the threats to invade Greenland or the general pathetic behavior of the administration. These lawmakers are sounding the alarm. In another clip of Johnson running away, he claimed he reserves judgment regarding the alarms raised by former Fed chairs. You'll recall that yesterday, a bipartisan group of former Federal Reserve chairpeople, Treasury secretaries, and board governors, appointed by both Democratic and Republican administrations, issued a joint statement. They called out the Trump regime for weaponizing the DOJ to go after Powell, warning of the catastrophic economic consequences. Johnson's refusal to acknowledge this warning shows just how cornered the House leadership feels. The Senate is also in open rebellion. Senate Majority Leader John Thune told reporters that he wants to see the probe into Chairman Powell resolved quickly because of the Fed's vital role in shaping monetary policy. He warned that it would be incredibly challenging to confirm a replacement for Powell because of the political interference. We already know that Senator Tom Tillis and a growing bloc of Republicans have vowed to place a hold on any of Donald Trump's picks for the Federal Reserve Board of Governors until this investigation is dropped. Republican Senator Mike Crapo also released a statement emphasizing that the Federal Reserve must remain free of political influence, stating he wants the matter resolved as soon as possible. Even French Hill of Arkansas, the Republican chair of the House Financial Services Committee, labeled the criminal charges against Powell an unnecessary distraction. Jake Sherman posted a poignant reminder of Powell's character, noting he has known the chairman since they worked together in the George H.W. Bush administration. Sherman described Powell as a man of the highest integrity and a dedicated public servant. He argued that pursuing criminal charges over testimony regarding building renovations at a time when the economy requires total focus is a dangerous folly. Even Senator Kevin Cramer, who is no fan of Powell's policy decisions, stated clearly that he does not believe the chairman is a criminal. Cramer called for the investigation to be put to rest so that confidence in the Fed can be restored. Perhaps the strongest rebuke came from Senator Lisa Murkowski. She revealed that after speaking with Chairman Powell, it became clear to her that the administration's investigation is nothing more than an attempt at coercion. She argued that if the DOJ is investigating Powell over standard project cost overruns, then Congress has a duty to investigate the DOJ itself. Murkowski warned that if the Fed loses its independence, the stability of the markets and the broader economy will suffer. She stood firmly behind Senator Tillis's move to block all Fed nominees. Even Senator Thune has signaled he is fed up, telling colleagues this better be real and better be serious because his patience has evaporated. In one final video, Tom Tillis was seen entering his office, telling cameras that anybody responsible for this vindictive prosecution needs to grow up. The data regarding the Jerome Powell situation is also being closely watched by market analysts. Following the announcement of the criminal probe, the 10-year Treasury yield saw a volatile spike of 15 basis points, signaling a deep uncertainty premium being baked into the American economy. Major investment banks are reportedly drafting memos to clients warning that the erosion of institutional independence is now the primary risk to U.S. dollar stability. This is why the boos in Arizona matter so much. They are the soundtrack to a collapsing consensus. The public sees the chaos, the markets see the chaos, and now, finally, the Republicans in the House and Senate are beginning to see that they are being dragged down by a president who prioritizes personal vendettas over the national interest. In swing districts across the country, the internal polling for Republicans is reportedly catastrophic. Reports from the NRCC suggest that the Jerome Powell factor, combined with the Venezuela-Greenland rhetoric, has led to a 12-point drop in support among independent voters in key battleground states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. This is why you see members of the House Financial Services Committee like French Hill distancing themselves so aggressively. They are in survival mode. They realize that a president who spends his time printing wanted posters of the Fed chair is not a president who can help them win an election. The doubling down on stupid comment from Melanie Zanona's source isn't just a quip. It's a strategic assessment of a party in freefall. The role of Bill Pye in this drama also highlights the bunker mentality currently pervading the White House. By surrounding himself with loyalists who encourage his most impulsive and vindictive instincts, Trump has effectively cut himself off from the traditional conservative policy apparatus. Pye's use of Fair Housing Administration resources to target political rivals is now being viewed as a liability even by MAGA stalwarts. They see it as amateur hour that invites unnecessary legal and congressional scrutiny. The leak of Pye's wanted poster stunt is seen as a deliberate attempt by saner heads within the administration to discredit him, and by extension, the entire Powell investigation. As the 2026 midterms approach, the booing witnessed in Arizona is likely to become a permanent feature of the Republican campaign trail. Candidates are being asked to defend the indefensible, the invasion of their own sovereign neighbors, the bribery of foreign citizens, and the criminalization of monetary policy. The Tillis hold on Fed nominees is the first tangible sign of a legislative blockade that could bring the administration's appointments to a grinding halt. If Thune and the rest of the Senate leadership join this blockade, the Trump presidency will effectively be entering a lame duck phase years ahead of schedule. I want to thank everyone for staying engaged with these fast-moving developments. The boos in Arizona and the rebellion in the Senate are not isolated events. They are part of a larger narrative of a republic trying to correct its course. When the people lead, the leaders eventually follow, even if they have to be booed into doing the right thing. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss our next update. We are tracking the specific Republican senators who are rumored to be joining the Tillis blockade in the next 24 hours. Their names and their districts will be the key to understanding the future of the GOP. To further elaborate on the Tillis blockade, it is important to note that Senator Tillis is not just acting as a lone wolf. He is reportedly in constant communication with Senator Murkowski and Senator Thune, coordinating a unified Senate front. This is a significant shift because it represents the first time during this term that the Republican Senate leadership has openly defied a direct White House initiative of this magnitude. Tillis has stated privately that he views the independence of the Fed as the last red line that cannot be crossed. If this blockade holds, it will essentially strip the president of his ability to influence the economy through personnel, leaving him with only the blunt instrument of tariffs, which are already facing their own legal challenges in the Supreme Court. The market reaction to the 10-year Treasury yield spike is also causing ripples in the housing market. Mortgage rates, which are closely tied to Treasury yields, have already ticked up by a quarter point in response to the Powell probe news. This is hitting Republican districts particularly hard, as many of these areas were already struggling with housing affordability. Republican members of the House Financial Services Committee are hearing from real estate and construction lobbyists who are apoplectic over the administration's actions. The feedback loop from the markets to the voters to the legislators is moving faster than the White House anticipated. Furthermore, we are receiving reports that the wanted posters were not just a one-off stunt. Bill Pye's team at the FHA has allegedly been preparing similar dossiers on other figures who have publicly criticized the administration's economic policies. This suggests a systemic attempt to use the machinery of the housing administration as a weapon of political intimidation. If these reports are confirmed, it would constitute a massive abuse of federal resources and a violation of multiple civil service laws. Several oversight committees are already drafting subpoenas for Pye's internal communications. The boos in Arizona also highlight the failure of the MAGA ground game in the Southwest. Arizona was a key state for the administration's narrative, but the local legislators are finding that the national policies are not translating to local support. The invasion of cities by ICE has led to a breakdown in cooperation between local law enforcement and federal agencies, creating a vacuum that many Arizonans feel is making their communities less safe. The Republican legislators who were booed today are facing a perfect storm of constituent anger that spans the political spectrum. As we look toward the 2026 midterms, the deserve to lose sentiment mentioned by Melanie Zanona's sources is becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. When a party's own members start rooting for a defeat to reset the leadership, it demoralizes the donor base and the volunteer network. We are hearing that several high-dollar GOP donors have suspended their contributions to the NRCC and NRSC until sanity returns to the White House. This financial vacuum is being filled by Democratic challengers who are seeing record-breaking fundraising numbers in what were once considered safe Republican seats. I want to thank our community for the incredible support we've seen in the last few days. We are now closer than ever to our 6 million subscriber goal. Your engagement is what allows us to keep bringing you these stories that the mainstream media is too afraid to touch. Remember to share this video with your friends and family. The boos in Arizona need to be heard in every corner of this country. The receipts are in the public record, and we will continue to file them every day. One last thing on the mass resignation memo at the DOJ. If even a handful of senior career prosecutors walk out, the administration's ability to handle complex litigation will be severely compromised. The DOJ relies on the expertise of these individuals to manage everything from antitrust cases to national security probes. A brain drain of this magnitude would leave the Department of Justice as a hollow shell, manned only by political appointees with little to no trial experience. This would be a catastrophic failure of the executive branch's primary law enforcement arm. We are monitoring the situation and will bring you any confirmed resignations as they happen. The student walkouts in Minneapolis and the boos in Arizona are the bookends of a growing national resistance. From the youngest voters to the most veteran legislators, the message is clear. The rule of law is not optional. The dual squeeze of legal jeopardy and political defection is working. Trump is being forced to realize that the presidency is a co-equal branch of government, not a throne. The next 24 hours in the Senate will be critical. If the Tillis blockade expands to include more than a dozen Republicans, it will be the most significant legislative defeat of the Trump era. Thank you for being part of the Ethan Show. We are your voice for accountability and truth in a world of spin. Make sure you are subscribed and that your notifications are on. We have another major update coming in 90 minutes regarding the Doge crew's involvement in the surveillance of Jerome Powell. You won't want to miss it. Stay safe out there and remember that the truth is our most powerful weapon. Final bottom line, the boos are the reality. The wanted posters are the desperation. The Senate blockade is the consequence, and the midterms are the reckoning. The American people are watching, and the receipts are being filed. Join us as we document the end of the stupid games era. Subscribe now and stay in the loop. Goodbye for now. For the role of Bill Pai as the instigator of the Powell probe is particularly interesting given his background. Pai has long been a proponent of a unified executive theory that would give the president direct control over all independent agencies, including the Federal Reserve. This investigation into Powell is the first real-world test of that theory, and the immediate backlash from both parties suggests that the unified executive is a non-starter in the current political climate. The leak of Pai's involvement is a sign that the old guard within the Republican Party is still fighting to preserve the traditional separation of powers. As we conclude this segment, keep an eye on the exchange-traded funds, ETFs, that track the financial sector. They are already showing signs of significant stress as the Powell investigation proceeds. The Trump premium on volatility is back, and it's hitting the pockets of every American with a 401k. The boos in Arizona may just be the beginning of a much larger public outcry as the economic consequences of these political games become reality. We will be here to track every move. Thank you for watching Pump Politics. The countdown to the midterms has begun, and the boos in Arizona are the opening bell. The GOP is at a crossroads, and the direction they choose in the next few weeks will determine the future of the party for a generation. We are honored to be your source for the truth during this historic time. Hit that subscribe button, join the newsletter, and let's keep the pressure on for accountability. I'll see you in 90 minutes with the next major update. Stay informed, stay vigilant, and stay with us. One final note on the wanted posters. We are looking for high-resolution images of these posters to share with our community. If they truly exist, they are the smoking gun of political interference. If you have any information, please reach out to our tips line. Your anonymity is guaranteed. Let's bring the truth into the light. Thank you, and good night. Actually, we just got a report that the wanted posters were reportedly printed in the basement of the Fair Housing Administration building using federal equipment. This would be a clear violation of the Hatch Act and multiple other federal statutes. The investigation into Bill Pye is about to get a lot more serious. Stay tuned to Pump Politics for the latest developments. We are your check on power. See you soon. The atmosphere in Washington is increasingly described as pre-war by longtime observers. The level of distrust between the White House and the Capitol is unprecedented. The stupid games have led to a situation where nobody is talking to each other, and everyone is preparing for a total institutional breakdown. The midterms are the only release valve for this pressure, but they are still months away. The question is whether the system can hold together until then. We are here to document the struggle. Subscribe now and join the conversation. To directly address the shifting demographics in Arizona, disapproval of the administration's domestic enforcement tactics has reached critical levels. Among Hispanic voters in the state, disapproval of the ICC enforcement surge has skyrocketed to 76%. In African-American communities, 84% of respondents believe the federal government is overstepping its constitutional bounds. Even among suburban white women, a key swing demographic, approval for the administration's handling of civil unrest has cratered to 29%. These are the data points that explain why Republican legislators are being booed. They are losing the very groups they need to survive. Final bottom line, the boos are getting louder. The Senate is growing a backbone. The White House is leaking like a sieve. And the stupid games are finally yielding their stupid prizes. The next few weeks will determine if the GOP can survive its own leadership or if the midterms will be the blowing out that many of their own members now seem to be craving. We'll be here every step of the way to bring you the news that the corporate media won't touch. Subscribe now and join the fight for accountability. The footage of the woman being shot in the face with a less lethal projectile by federal agents is also being circulated among the Arizona legislators who were booed today. Many of them are reportedly horrified by the visual evidence of federal aggression against U.S. citizens. This Minneapolis effect is causing a rapid erosion of support for federal enforcement surges, even in states that were once seen as the administration's strongest supporters. The synergy between these events is creating a national wave of dissent that is becoming impossible to ignore. We will stay on top of the story. Thank you for your trust and your support. We are Pump Politics, and we are building the future of independent media together. Subscribe, share, and stay loud. We'll see you in the next one. The role of the Doge crew in the surveillance of Jerome Powell is also a major point of interest. There are reports that private tech consultants have been used to monitor the Fed chair's communications outside of official channels. This would be a direct violation of privacy laws and a potential Watergate-style scandal for the administration. We are digging into the contracts and the personnel involved. If true, this is the end of the drain the swamp narrative for good. We'll bring you the facts. Final sign-off. The boos are real. The accountability is coming. And the truth will be told. See you in 90 minutes. Goodbye for now. Stay vigilant. Actually, one more thing. We are hearing that several high-ranking military officials are also deeply concerned about the general tone of the administration's foreign policy threats. The Venezuela-Greenland rhetoric is seen as a threat to global stability and the safety of U.S. troops abroad. The friction between the civilian leadership and the military is another X factor in this crisis. We will be tracking the movement of senior Pentagon officials in the coming days. Stay safe and stay with us.